You ever sit at a dinner table with people who say they love you, while knowing full well they don't respect a single thing you do? My name's Dylan. I'm 28. I run my own online business, e-commerce and consulting, mostly. Built it from scratch in my college dorm. Spent years grinding behind a laptop while everyone else partied or slept in. It started slow. First year, I made enough to cover textbooks and gas. Second year, rent. By the time I graduated, I was making enough to hire a part-time assistant. These days, I employ 4 full-time contractors, pull in a healthy 6 figures annually, and work out of a sleek little office I designed myself. Sounds pretty decent, right? Not to my family. My dad, Kevin, is old school. Construction foreman, 35 years in the trade, hands like sandpaper and a laugh like a chainsaw. To him, real work means sweat, calluses, early mornings, and late nights. Anything done from a laptop is playing pretend. He said that more times than I can count. And each time he says it, my mom, Marie, just gives me that tight smile of hers, like she's sorry for me but doesn't want to cause a scene. My younger brother Ryan? He doesn't even hide the smirk. He thinks he's smarter than me. Always has. Ryan's 25 now, 3 years younger than me. He's the golden child. Straight A student, class president in high school, debate team captain, all that. Went to law school straight after undergrad. Didn't pay a cent for it. Our parents footed the whole bill. Rent, groceries, tuition, everything. Meanwhile, I was juggling client calls and customer complaints just to afford instant noodles and Amazon knockoff sneakers. I never resented Ryan for being book smart, but I did start to resent how easy he had it. How my parents bent over backwards for him like he was some kind of royalty. I think the moment things shifted for me was during Christmas 2 years ago. We were all sitting around the fireplace. Me, my parents, Ryan, and our aunt and uncle who'd come in from out of town. My aunt asked how my business was going. I'd just landed a huge client at the time, a mid-sized beauty brand that needed help scaling their online store. I was excited, genuinely proud. I started telling them about the contract, the analytics, the strategies I'd been using. And then my dad cut in, loud enough to stop the conversation cold. Let's not bore everyone with make-believe numbers, Dylan. I remember laughing, because I thought he was joking, but his face was dead serious. Ryan chuckled into his glass of wine. My mom looked away. Nobody said anything. That silence. It hit harder than any insult ever could. That night, I sat out on the porch alone, watching the snow pile up on the railing. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. Just numb. Like I'd finally accepted something I'd been pretending not to see for years. My family didn't see me as successful. They didn't even see me as equal. I was the weird older brother who couldn't hack it in the real world, who built a digital empire from his laptop and still didn't measure up to a suit with a title. But I wasn't about to throw a pity party. That moment lit something in me. Not revenge, at least, not then. More like clarity. I stopped trying to prove myself to them. I doubled down on my business, upgraded my office, took risks, reinvested in smarter tools. By the following summer, I'd scaled to the point where I didn't just have clients. I had wait lists. And yet, every time I visited, my dad still asked when I'd get a real job. Every time Ryan came home for the weekend, he was showered with praise and special treatment. I'd watch him walk through the front door and be greeted like a war hero. There's our boy, the future lawyer, the pride of the family. What was I? The tech support. At one point, Ryan actually asked me to build him a website for his future firm. He said it like he was doing me a favor. Didn't even offer to pay. That's when the shift started happening. Slowly, subtly. Little comments here and there, from relatives, from neighbors. You're still running that online thing? So proud of Ryan getting his JD. And Dylan. Well, I guess computers are important these days too. Then came the family barbecue. Dad had just finished building a new deck in the backyard and wanted to show it off. Everyone was there. Extended family, neighbors, even some of Ryan's old high school friends. He wasn't even in town, yet the conversation kept circling back to him. How hard law school must be. How brilliant he is. How one day, he'll take care of everyone. I sat through all of it, smiling like a fool, sipping my drink and waiting for someone, anyone, to ask how I was doing. They didn't. Then, about halfway through the evening, my dad got up in front of everyone and made a toast. He held his beer up and said, "Here's to Ryan, our future, the one who'll carry the family name forward. We're so proud of you, son." I wasn't even surprised anymore. But what did surprise me was what came after. My mom chimed in and said, "We've decided to gift him the lake house once he passes the bar. He deserves it after everything." The lake house. My grandfather's old property upstate. Rustic, beautiful, 3 bedrooms with wraparound windows and a dock that touches the water. We spent every summer there growing up. I always thought it'd stay in the family, split between me and Ryan, maybe. But no. Apparently, it was his reward for sticking to the plan. I stood up and excused myself without saying a word. Got in my car. Drove 2 hours back to my place. Sat at my desk, opened a new tab, and started researching property laws and family transfers. And that was the first moment I allowed myself to think the thought. If they won't give me a seat at the table, maybe it's time I build a better one. And take theirs apart, plank by plank. But I wasn't ready to make a move yet. Not until I knew what I was really dealing with. What happened next made everything crystal clear. 3 weeks after that barbecue, Ryan called me. Not a text. Not a casual "yo, you free?" ping on Instagram. A full-on phone call. He rarely called me unless he needed something. So I stared at the screen for a second, let it ring twice, then answered with a flat, "Hey." "Hey, big bro," he said, voice bright and smug like he just got handed a free trophy. "Got a quick favor, super simple. You still doing the website stuff?" I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. "Yeah. What?" He dove straight in. "So, me and this guy I met during my internship, Colin, super smart dude. We're starting a boutique law firm after the bar. Small, high-end clients, you know? Real selective. Anyway, we need a website. Something slick. Professional but cool. Modern, but not like tech bro weird." I waited. Nothing about paying me. Nothing about my time or rate. Just demands. "You want me to design it?" "Well, yeah. You're the best at this stuff, right?" He said it like he was doing me a favor. Like I should be honored. "It's not even urgent. Just sometime before October. That's when we want to launch." I let a beat pass. "How much are you offering?" Silence. Then he laughed. "Come on, Dylan. Don't be like that. We're family." There it was. The family card. The same one they'd pulled my whole life when they wanted something for nothing. When they wanted help moving, free tech support, business advice, a last-minute logo, but never once had they called it real work. "You're asking me to build a brand, front-end and back-end, write copy, optimize for search, design graphics, and do security setup," I said slowly. "That's $8,000 minimum on the market. And you want it for free." Another silence. "Wow. Okay," he said. "I didn't think you'd be petty about it. Dad said you're doing well with your little company. What's the big deal?" My jaw locked. My little company. I didn't argue. I didn't lash out. I just said, "I'm not available, Ryan. Hire someone else." He scoffed. "Whatever. Don't stress it. I'll find someone who gets it." Then he hung up. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed replaying the call over and over. The tone. The entitlement. The way he acted like I was being difficult when I dared to set a boundary. I kept thinking about every time I'd helped him with school projects, edited his resumes, even paid for his Uber once because he left his card at home and Mom texted me like it was my job to cover for him. And all of it was bubbling into something hot and heavy in my chest. Something I hadn't let myself feel fully until now. I wasn't just hurt. I was angry. Because it wasn't just about Ryan. It was everything. The way our parents always made excuses for him. The way Dad still introduced me as the computer guy like I was a teenager fixing routers. The way they pretended I didn't exist when Ryan was in the room. I was tired of swallowing it. Tired of pretending it didn't matter. The next morning, I drove to the lake house. I hadn't been there in years, not since college. The place looked smaller than I remembered. The dock needed sanding. One of the shutters was hanging crooked, but the air smelled the same: pine, lake water, and summer. I walked around the property, snapping photos with my phone. Every crack in the deck, every overgrown patch of weeds. Then I pulled up Zillow. It wasn't listed. Not yet. But I had a feeling it would be soon. And I was right. A week later, my mom called out of the blue. It started casual, weather, small talk. How was I sleeping? Then she slipped it in like it was nothing. "Your father and I are transferring the deed to Ryan after the bar results come in. He's earned it." Earned it. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "You're giving him the lake house?" "It's not a gift, Dylan," she said, already on the defensive. "It's recognition. He's worked so hard. It's been in the family for years, and he's the one carrying the name forward. It just makes sense." I blinked. "So I'm not part of the family?" "Oh, don't be dramatic," she said. You have your business. You're independent. You don't need us. That hit harder than I expected. You don't need us. I hung up without saying goodbye. I don't think she even noticed. That weekend, I drove back to the lake house again. This time, I brought a friend, Marcus, a real estate agent I'd worked with before. He did a full walkthrough, took notes, asked questions. You interested in buying this place? He asked. Maybe, I said. Depends who owns it. He grinned. Let me do some digging. Turns out, the house was still under my grandfather's estate. Not officially transferred. Just in limbo, waiting for the paperwork to finalize. And since I had the right connections and a healthy savings account, it wouldn't take much to speed that process along. But I didn't make a move. Not yet. Because the breaking point hadn't come. That arrived the night Ryan passed the bar exam. My parents threw a celebration party. Rented out a fancy steakhouse downtown. Invited everyone. Extended family, old neighbors, even some of Ryan's law professors. I wasn't going to go. I was halfway to skipping it when my assistant pinged me about a payment issue, and I had to stop by the office to handle it. But after I resolved it, I found myself driving downtown anyway, telling myself I'd just drop in, say congrats, then leave. When I arrived, they were already 3 courses in. My mom waved me over with a surprised look like she hadn't expected me to show. Ryan was in the middle of a toast, glass of bourbon raised, smile wide enough to stretch across the room. And to my amazing parents, he said, who never gave up on me, who believed in the dream even when it was hard. I hope I make you proud. Applause. Cheers. Clinking glasses. Then my dad stood up. I just want to say, he looked around the room with that gravelly voice of his, already a few drinks in. Ryan is everything we hoped for. Smart, driven, successful. He's the kind of son any father would be proud of. And I know your grandfather would be proud, too. That's why we're finally making it official. He turned to Ryan and clapped a hand on his shoulder. The lake house is yours, son. Congratulations. People cheered again. My mom dabbed at her eyes. Ryan raised his glass again like a prince accepting his crown. I stood in the back, invisible. My chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left an echo. I don't know what I expected, maybe a nod? A mention? A glance? Instead, I was the background noise. That was the moment. That was when the last thread snapped. I didn't say a word. I didn't cause a scene. I just stepped outside, pulled out my phone, and made a call. Marcus? Let's buy the lake house. Now. He laughed, thinking I was joking. I'm serious, I said. Find out what it takes. Get the papers moving. I'll wire you whatever you need. I want it locked before the ink even dries on their paperwork. 2 days later, I had the documents in my inbox. 3 days after that, I signed the purchase agreement. And a week after that, I held the title in my hand. I owned the lake house. The one they promised to Ryan. The one they'd been bragging about for months. The one they thought was their final show of love and loyalty. But now it belonged to the son they called the computer guy. The one who didn't need them. The one who had built his own empire from the ground up. I didn't tell them right away. No, that part needed the perfect timing. And Ryan's official bar license ceremony? That was shaping up to be exactly that. So I waited. I planned. And when the day came, I didn't just show up with a smile. I brought an envelope. Inside it was a copy of the title, the final purchase receipt, and a little handwritten note. You always said I don't do real work. I figured it was time to show you what pretend money can buy. What happened next? Let's just say nobody at that table saw it coming. Not Ryan. Not my mom. Not even my dad. The truth is, I didn't expect it to sting so much. Owning the lake house should have felt like a victory. And for a moment, it did. When the signed deed landed in my inbox with that unmistakable seal, Dylan Carter, legal owner, I allowed myself a rare smirk. I had won. Quietly. Cleanly. Without raising my voice or begging for recognition. The place they called Ryan's future? It now bore my name. But once the high wore off, all I felt was hollow. Because what do you do when the people you love make it clear, again and again, that you're invisible? I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't plan some cartoon villain revenge arc. I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I was tired of being erased. Tired of being the footnote in my own family's story. Tired of smiling through their indifference like it didn't hurt. But now I had this house. A beautiful, aging, creaky old house on the lake. My grandfather's favorite place in the world. And I was sitting on its back porch with a beer in my hand, looking out at the glassy water, wondering why it didn't feel like enough. 2 days after the bar celebration, I got a text from my mom. Did you do something to the house? That was it. No greeting. No, how are you? Just suspicion. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over my screen. I didn't answer. A few hours later, Ryan called. I let it go to voicemail. He called again. Then he texted. Dude. What? Dad's losing it. I just got off the phone with the attorney. You bought the house? Why would you do that? And finally, was this because of the website thing? I laughed out loud at that one. Because of the website thing. As if that was the root of it all. As if years of silence, dismissal, and casual cruelty could be boiled down to a single favor declined. I didn't reply. That's when the calls stopped and the silence started. I thought I'd feel free, vindicated, like I'd finally proven myself. But instead, the quiet wrapped around me like a noose. My phone stopped buzzing. The family group chat, which was mostly just updates about Ryan's accomplishments anyway, went eerily still. No more check-ins. No more invitations. I didn't even get a text when Aunt Mel passed away 2 weeks later. I found out from a cousin's Instagram post. I wasn't cut off. I was just phased out. Like an outdated app no one used anymore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt completely alone. I stopped going to family dinners. Stopped answering the occasional polite texts. I buried myself in work, client projects, onboarding, strategy planning, late-night data dives. My business was growing faster than ever, but I couldn't even enjoy it. Not really. Not when every win was followed by a hollow echo in my chest. I didn't want to admit it, but I missed them. Even after everything, every slight, every cold shoulder, I missed my mom's laugh, my dad's weird advice about power tools, even Ryan's smug jokes when he wasn't being unbearable. I missed belonging somewhere, even if that place had never truly made space for me. And that feeling, that weight, slowly started pressing down on me in other ways. I stopped sleeping. I skipped meals. The business kept moving forward, but I was moving through it like a ghost. I had money, a beautiful condo, my name on the deed to a lake house people would kill to own. But inside, I was sinking. It got bad enough that one day, my assistant, Camila, pulled me aside after a meeting. Are you okay? She asked gently. I blinked at her. Of course. What? You haven't smiled in weeks, she said. You barely speak unless it's about numbers. And I caught you staring at your laptop for 10 minutes the other day without typing a word. I opened my mouth to give her a canned answer. Some corporate nonsense about stress and workload. But then my voice cracked. I don't think they love me, I said. It just came out. Camila blinked. Who? My family. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out a chair and sat across from me. Tell me everything. And I did. For the first time, I spilled it all. The years of being overlooked. The lake house. The bar celebration. The envelope. The fallout. All of it. Camila didn't say much. She just listened. And when I finally stopped, she looked me in the eyes and said, You've spent so long trying to prove you're enough for people who decided they didn't want to see you. That's not your failure, Dylan. That's theirs. That sentence sat with me. For days. It cracked something open. Not all at once, not like a light switch. But slowly, gently, I started journaling. Something I hadn't done since college. Just my thoughts, no filters. I wrote about how I felt when I was 10 and Dad missed my science fair. About how it felt when Ryan got the first car talk while I rode the bus. About how I was always the one expected to understand, to compromise, to step back. And in between the pain, I started writing about what I loved. What made me feel alive. The joy of building something from scratch. The thrill of solving hard problems. The quiet pride of employing people who supported their own families because of the company I built. I wrote about the clients who said thank you. The strangers who emailed me saying my tutorials helped them start their first business. The night I made my first $1,000 in a single sale and danced alone in my kitchen with a slice of cold pizza. That's when I realized something huge. I'd spent my whole life asking the wrong people for validation. I'd been standing in the wrong spotlight. And once that thought rooted itself in me, everything started to shift. I took a weekend trip to the lake house. Alone. Brought a toolbox and some gloves. Spent 2 days sanding the dock, replacing the crooked shutter, trimming the wild hedges. Every scratch, every sweat bead felt like therapy. I wasn't fixing the house for them. I was doing it for me. It wasn't theirs anymore. It was mine. On the second morning, I found an old photo in the attic. Me and Ryan as kids, fishing with Grandpa. I stood there for a long time, looking at that grainy image. I was maybe 7. Ryan looked about 4. We were both grinning, holding up sticks instead of actual rods. I didn't feel anger, just sadness. We were kids once. Before favoritism. Before resentment. Before the roles were written in stone. I took that photo downstairs and put it on the mantel. And that night, for the first time in years, I slept like a rock. Over the next few months, I leaned into the new version of myself. The quieter one. The one who didn't need applause or approval. I cut down my work hours, started mentoring young entrepreneurs online. I joined a small business alliance and offered free workshops at local colleges. I took up photography again, my old college hobby, and started documenting nature walks around the lake. I even made a side Instagram for it. No business. No hashtags. Just beauty. And something strange happened. Without meaning to, I started becoming whole. Not in a dramatic movie-ending way, but slowly, brick by brick, choice by choice. And that's when the calls started again. First, a message from my mom. "Hey, hope you're doing well. Miss seeing you. Would love to catch up soon." Then from Ryan. "I don't know what to say. I guess I get why you did it. I was a jerk. I'm sorry." I read them, but I didn't reply. Not yet. Because I wasn't ready. Not for reconciliation. Not for closure. But I was building something now, something better. Not revenge. Not a comeback. Just a life that was mine. Entirely mine. And that life was about to come full circle. Because there was one thing I hadn't told anyone yet. The lake house. It wasn't just a trophy. It was the start of something bigger. Something none of them saw coming. And it all came together the moment I received a certain envelope in the mail. One with a very specific invitation. An invitation I planned to RSVP to, in person, with a little surprise of my own tucked in my jacket pocket. They say revenge is best served cold. But I wasn't interested in revenge for its own sake. I wasn't planning some over-the-top spectacle. No shouting match. No dramatic courtroom-style reveal. I didn't want to humiliate them. I just wanted them to see the truth. Not the version they'd chosen to believe for years, but me. What I had built. Who I had become. Without their help. Without their praise. And I wanted them to feel it. Not just understand it intellectually, but feel the weight of everything they'd ignored and dismissed. The cost of their golden child blinders. The consequences of their silence. The opportunity arrived 3 months after I fixed up the lake house. It came in the form of an ivory envelope with gold lettering. The kind of thing you'd expect from a wedding or a governor's ball. I thought it was junk at first, some luxury real estate event or a startup gala invite. But when I turned it over and saw the names embossed on the flap, my chest tightened. Ryan Carter, ESQ, and Colin Hayes, ESQ. Invite you to the grand opening of Carter and Hayes Law Group. It was official. My brother had launched his boutique law firm. The one he'd tried to rope me into building a website for free. The one he'd later built using some cut-rate designer, judging by the clunky site I'd stumbled across while doom-scrolling one night. The launch party was black tie. Downtown venue. Dress code strictly enforced. A catered affair with wine tastings, live jazz, and an exclusive tour of the firm's newly designed office. It sounded expensive, flashy, and very, very Ryan. The note inside was short. Would mean a lot if you came. Ryan. That was it. I sat there with the envelope in my lap, staring at those words. Would mean a lot. Now would mean a lot. But I didn't tear it up. I didn't toss it. I slid it back into its sleeve and set it on my desk, letting the weight of it settle over me like a quiet challenge. That night, I walked the perimeter of the lake house with a notepad in hand. I wasn't thinking about the party. Not directly. I was thinking about how to use it. Not just as an opportunity to show up, but to shift the narrative. The one where I'm the background character in Ryan's story. The one where I'm the side hustle guy. The computer dude. The outsider. I wanted to change that. Not with confrontation, but with execution. And I had just the plan. Step 1 was subtle. Reach out to every contact I had in business law, real estate, and digital services across the city. I wasn't trying to burn bridges, just lighting a few torches to see what shadows they cast. A few quiet questions here. A little info gathering there. Not to hurt Ryan's firm, but to understand its foundation. Colin Hayes, I discovered, was brilliant but reckless. Great at legal theory, not so great at operations. Their firm had splashed out big for that downtown lease, pulled in a couple of angel investors, and took on some high-risk clients fast. Impressive, sure, but brittle. They were trying to build a luxury brand without the infrastructure to back it. Their website wasn't just ugly, it was leaking metadata. Their newsletter system hadn't been properly secured, and some of their public contracts were available through unsecured Google Drive links. Rookie mistakes. I had no intention of sabotaging them, but I saw cracks in the marble. All Ryan had ever known was support. Safety nets. Bailouts. I'd spent a decade learning how to survive when nobody believed in me. I had battle scars. He had clean suits. But power doesn't just come from knowing someone's flaws. Power comes from knowing your own worth and having the receipts to prove it. So I spent the next 6 weeks prepping. Not just for the event, for the moment. I called Camila and told her I wanted to host a small networking night at the lake house. Nothing big. Just 12 people max. All handpicked. All influential. People I'd worked with quietly over the years. Angel investors, brand owners, financial consultants, and 3 business journalists who owed me favors for feeding them early stories. Are we announcing something? She asked. Not yet, I said. We're previewing something. That night at the lake house was like setting a chessboard. I let them walk the newly polished floors, admire the renovations, sip wine on the dock under lantern light. I gave them a soft pitch, nothing bold. Just whispers of a new venture I was launching. An elite business accelerator for young founders who didn't fit the traditional mold. Remote first. High return. Tight-knit. I called it Blueprint. The name caught on fast. By the time everyone left, I had 8 soft commitments and 3 partnership offers. More than I expected, but it wasn't about signing anything yet. It was about planting a flag. 1 week before Ryan's launch party, I met with a local design firm and commissioned a single custom envelope. Navy blue, embossed with silver foil. Inside, I enclosed 3 items. A copy of the deed to the lake house. A single photo of the event at my property, with the guests blurred out, but my silhouette unmistakable. A letter that said simply, sometimes, silence speaks louder than praise. I've stopped asking for your applause. I'll let the results speak for themselves. I didn't sign it. Didn't have to. 2 days before the party, I drove to my parents' house and slid it into their mailbox myself. I didn't ring the bell. Didn't wait around. Let the silence do its work. The day of the event, I wore a charcoal gray suit, midnight blue tie, and polished Oxfords. Nothing flashy, but sharp, clean, intentional. Camila came as my +1, dressed in emerald green and holding a sleek leather portfolio containing a dozen Blueprint one-pagers. Not for distribution, just for presence, for posture. I wasn't there to pitch. I was there to exist, unapologetically. The venue was sleek. All glass and brass and over-budget LED lighting. There was a string quartet, wine stewards with white gloves, and a giant step-in-repeat banner bearing the Carter and Hayes logo in gold. Ryan saw me from across the room and stiffened. His smile wavered for a split second before returning like a mask snapping back into place. He approached with a champagne flute and forced cheer. Dylan, he said, didn't think you'd come. You invited me, I said calmly. Figured I'd see what a real job looks like. His smile cracked again. Listen, about the house. Not here, I said, motioning toward the crowd. Tonight's your night, right? He hesitated, then nodded. Right. He wasn't ready for what I was really planning. Because I hadn't come just to steal the spotlight. I'd come to show them they never owned it in the first place. My parents arrived 40 minutes in. My mom saw me first. Her face flickered with something. Shame? Surprise? Maybe both. Dad didn't make eye contact. Just scanned the room like he was hunting for someone more important. They didn't approach. I didn't either. Not yet. Instead, I spent the next hour floating. Shaking hands. Reconnecting. Speaking with grace, charm, warmth. Camila played her role perfectly, discussing our growth, mentioning select metrics without bragging, name-dropping a few of our guests from the lake house event just loudly enough to plant seeds. Ryan was watching. So was Dad. At one point, I passed by my mom near the hors d'oeuvres table. She touched my arm gently. You look good, she said, eyes soft. Really good. I nodded. Thanks. Then walked away. No bitterness. No sarcasm. Just strength. By the time the event wound down, the air had shifted. I could feel it. Not just from my family, but from others too. People who had heard the whispers. Seen the contrast. The brother with a glossy smile and shaky roots, and the one with no spotlight, but solid ground beneath his feet. Ryan pulled me aside near the end. I don't know what you're trying to prove, he said, eyes tight. I looked at him for a long moment. Not with anger. with something else. Pity. You think this is about proving something to you? I asked quietly. You were never the finish line, Ryan. I've already won my race. He blinked, confused. Then why buy the house? I smiled. To remind myself that I didn't need your path. Or theirs. And that success doesn't need to be loud to be real. I turned and walked away, leaving him in the echo of his own confusion. But I wasn't done. Because the final part of the plan, the quiet, perfect full-circle moment, was already in motion. And when it landed, it wouldn't just shake Ryan. It would shatter everything they thought they knew about who I was. A week after Ryan's firm launch party, the fallout began. It started quietly. The kind of quiet that fools you into thinking everything's fine, until the cracks beneath the surface start to split. Ryan called me again. Twice. I didn't answer. Then I got an email, the subject line in all caps. Please call me. The body of the email was short. We need to talk. It's important. I don't know what you're doing, but it's messing everything up. I read it once, then again, and finally I smiled. See, the thing about revenge, real revenge, is that it's not about shouting. It's about precision, timing, letting your opponents dig the hole, then simply making sure they fall in when the time is right. And Ryan had dug a deep one. Remember how I told you his firm had leaky infrastructure? Weak backend, no real oversight. That wasn't just an observation. It was an opportunity. After their launch, they rushed to secure high-end clients. Political campaigns, tech startups, real estate moguls, people who cared about image, reputation, discretion, people who didn't like loose ends. Camila and I didn't expose them. That would have been obvious, childish, even. Instead, we took a page out of the same playbook they'd used on me for years. We let someone else do the dismissing. At our private lake house gathering, one of the guests was a man named Clarence DuPont, a 62-year-old venture capitalist with fingers in everything from pharmaceuticals to fintech. Clarence didn't say much that night, just observed, asked good questions, took notes. What I didn't tell anyone, not even Camila, was that Clarence had once backed a firm that Colin Hayes had worked for during an internship. Let's just say, Colin left that job on awkward terms. Not a scandal, but enough of a red flag for Clarence to raise a brow when he saw the Carter and Hayes launch announcement. 2 days after the launch party, Clarence reached out to a few clients Ryan had just signed, shared a few concerns. Quietly, professionally. No accusations, just a nudge to maybe reevaluate their legal representation before things got too messy. 3 days after that, 2 of Ryan's biggest clients withdrew their contracts. 4 days later, a third client, a particularly image-conscious startup with millions in investor money, issued a public statement saying they were exploring new legal partnerships more aligned with their data protection values. Ryan was spiraling, but the final blow wasn't the clients. It was the lake house. That house wasn't just symbolic. It was part of their future planning, their retirement dream. My parents had always imagined passing it to Ryan, letting him use it as both a family getaway and a prestige asset. Something to show clients, friends, potential in-laws. A legacy property. Now it had become a quiet reminder of everything they'd ignored. A monument they couldn't brag about anymore. Because whenever someone asked about the house, they had to admit it was mine. And I wasn't shy about it. The real estate site listed it as Carter Lake House, a restored family estate, now privately owned and redesigned by entrepreneur Dylan Carter, founder of Blueprint. That last part, that was intentional. Because Blueprint had officially launched. A curated accelerator for unconventional founders. The ones who didn't fit the Ivy League mold. Who had ideas but no backing. Who reminded me of myself. We weren't loud. We weren't flashy. But we were already profitable. And the press? Oh, the press loved the story. The New York Business Journal ran a profile titled, From Black Sheep to Blueprint. How Dylan Carter quietly built a tech empire outside the spotlight. The article included quotes from former clients, Blueprint mints, and yes, Clarence DuPont. It also included a single, very deliberate sentence. Mr. Carter's rise stands in contrast to his brother Ryan Carter, co-founder of the recently launched Carter and Hayes firm, which has faced early turbulence following the loss of several major clients. That article hit the web at 6 a.m. on a Monday. By noon, it was trending on LinkedIn. By 3 p.m., my mom called me. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was shaky. She sounded smaller than I'd ever heard her. Dylan, I just read something online. I didn't know you were doing all of this. Why didn't you tell us? I'm sorry we didn't listen. I really am. I don't know what to say. I didn't call back. Not yet. The next day, Ryan showed up at my office. Camila buzzed me. Your brother's here. Says he won't leave unless you talk to him. I met him in the hallway. He looked different. Not broken, but deflated. I just want to talk, he said. I nodded and led him to a side room. Not my office, not Camila's, just a neutral meeting space. He sat down across from me and rubbed his eyes. You torpedoed my firm. I didn't respond. I lost 2 clients, Dylan. Major ones. I folded my hands. I didn't torpedo anything. I had a gathering. You invited yourself into the same market I've lived in for years. If people decided to reevaluate based on what they saw, that's not sabotage. That's competition. He slumped back. You didn't have to go this far. You're right, I said calmly. I didn't have to, but I wanted to make sure you understood something. He looked up. I'm not the backup son. I'm not the afterthought. I'm not your tech guy. I'm me. And I built something real. You don't have to like it, but you will respect it. Silence. Then he said, softer, you could have just told me. I laughed once. I did. For years. You just weren't listening. We sat in silence. Then I stood. This room isn't for apologies. It's for endings. We're done here. He didn't follow me out. He sat there for a long time. That weekend, I drove back to the lake house. Alone again. The water was still. The wind quiet. I sat on the dock and watched the sun dip behind the trees. I thought about everything. About the years I'd spent trying to prove myself. About the weight of silence, of being overlooked, of wanting something. Anything. That felt like pride from the people who raised me. And now? Now I had peace. Not because I'd beaten them, but because I'd stopped needing their applause. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Scrolled through my voicemail until I found my mom's message. I hit play, listened again, and then deleted it. The past didn't own me anymore. And for the first time in my life, that felt like enough. I didn't take the house to hurt them. I took it to finally have something they couldn't take away. Me.